Just over. Jesus Christ, I'm not even in the camera. See, that's what happens. Well, it's good to finally get a chance to play with you, dude.
Absolutely, sir. It's been a long time coming.
It has been a long time coming. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It's Wednesday again at Guitargate Live. And I have an old friend of mine who's a great player and a great educator, Mr. Mike Gambone.
Hello.
So, I'm trying to have, some different players on here, not just guitar players. Drummers, bass players, keyboard players, singers, hopefully.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the main things that, as musicians, we tend to forget about is the role of other instruments, the space they fill. And one thing I wanted to talk to you in particular about is, learning to play other instruments. I'm trying to learn drums. I'm teaching my little 7-year-old to learn drums. And I feel like all musicians, I feel like since you have to kind of start at the rhythm, I would recommend for all musicians to start learning drums. You know what I mean? I feel like it'll make you a better musician, find your spots better. And I wanted to kind of hear from your standpoint, not just kind of as a player, but also an educator, just your thoughts on that in general, and just, a good place for guitar players or whatever to start to sync better with the drums, man. Be better musicians.
Well,
I know I gave you a lot there.
Yeah, you opened up a big can of worms, that's for sure. But it all comes back to the same thing, and that is your awareness of what's going on in the music you're playing.
Yeah.
So the more aware you are, the better choices you're going to make in the moment. When you think about music and the different components, you have rhythm, you have melody, and you have harmony.
That's it.
That's what it comes down to, and you mix those three together, and you come up with something that hopefully resembles music. And the more time you spend studying each of those components, the better understanding you're going to have of music and how it's constructed and how you can better serve the music that you're playing. I know a lot of people feel like, starting out with the piano is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I have two trains of thought on that. One is, it is a great place to start because it's everything. It's melody, it's harmony, it's rhythm. But I think the most important thing for a student just starting out, learning to play a musical instrument, is finding a musical instrument that they connect with the most. Because if you don't find that connection, if you're forced to play an instrument that you don't necessarily connect with, you might lose that interest in wanting to learn to play music.
If you don't fall in love with it first, you're not going to spend time trying to get good at it as opposed to doing anything else.
That's right.
Yeah, that really is crucial. So you have young kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I like the idea of starting on piano though, just because they can press the key. Yeah. Where guitar, the initial physical hurdles are, much steeper. And with drums, my kids just want to bang the crap out of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they obviously love the drums, and I'm encouraging them to start with the drums because I feel like, if you have good rhythm, you can figure out the melody and the harmony.
Yeah.
The rhythm is the much harder component, I feel.
Yeah, I guess.
And the much rarer component.
I guess it depends on what.
See, we're going to go all philosophical here out of nowhere.
Well, I agree. The thing is, with all these points that are being made, there's different ways of looking at it. And for me, rhythm, I guess it's because that's what I spent my life studying, is rhythm from day one. When I started taking drum lessons, I feel like that came a little easier to me than understanding melody and harmony because I didn't start with an instrument.
Yeah.
That focused on melody and harmony, didn't have those elements. And it wasn't until I got to college and I had to do ear training and had to be able to sing a melody.
And do you feel like that helped you as a drummer, though?
Oh, tremendously, yeah.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't really understand how it was going to help me as a drummer.
Sure.
I was kind of anti that stuff because it's like, why am I going to spend my time working on this stuff when I can be working on my drums and working on all the different styles that I'm trying to master.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize at the time, eventually I came around, was that that was opening my ears to a very important side of music, which is melody, appreciating and understanding melody,
Mm-hmm.
melodic phrasing, and harmony and chord progressions, and how all that is just as important as knowing how to play all the various styles of music.
Yeah, because then you can support the instrumentalist better and bring the song to life more if you understand all those parts. And that's kind of what I was saying too. Is that, as a guitar player, I feel like it behooves me to learn drums, or at least, think rhythm first, because that makes the melody stronger. It makes the chord changes make more sense. You know what I mean? Like that's, so like when I come down here, I'm like, man, maybe I should, spend an hour working on whatever instead of trying to figure out a groove on the drums. But I feel like when I do spend an hour trying to get a groove right on the drums, I tend to have a better gig that night.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get more in tune with another aspect of music. It makes you, connect better with the instrument that you're most familiar with.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I totally get that. And some of that is spending time working on something that really requires you to think.
Yeah.
And getting in tune with another side of music.
Not being in your safe zone, yeah.
Yeah, you get in your safe zone, it's like, this feels, it's like cross-training for the mind, once you get back to
That's a good way. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: when you start your students, right?
Yep.
You start with groove. You start with fundamentals. What's a good place to start? So, like, if anybody's watching, like myself, I'm learning drums. I'm trying to teach my son. From a teacher's perspective, because there's many different ways to teach and learn.
Yeah.
What do you start with? Do you start with get them hooked on the groove, or do you start with what do you do?
Well,
never mind. Just go for it.
Well, if it's a beginning student, they've never taken a drum lesson or really any musical lesson, first thing is first, and that's getting control of the drumsticks. Basic fundamental control of the drumsticks and being able to play basic rhythms with the drumsticks. Because it's really hard to develop four-way coordination when you don't even have two-way coordination.
Fair enough.
And having that fundamental two-way coordination down with the hands, where you're holding the sticks correctly, you're not dropping them. If you can't, comfortably play on one surface, that being a drum pad or a snare drum, there's no way you're going to be able to move around the drum set comfortably. You got to have basic control of the sticks at the drum pad or snare drum, being able to play just fundamental basic rhythms and sticking patterns. Then from there, move over to the drum set, get the bass drum involved.
Yeah.
Have them play like simple quarter notes with the bass drum while playing some of those patterns with their hands. And then getting into the three-voice thing, not just one voice, that being the snare, not just two voices being the snare and bass drum, but hi-hat, snare, and bass. And there's a lot of different routes you can take, a lot of different avenues you can take to get to that point. I know for me, I studied just the drum pad, working on reading music, basic music, working on fundamental, just like basic rudiments. 6 months of that before I got to the drum set.
It's a lot to ask of young students in particular, I think.
Yes. I was fortunate in that I had a great drum teacher, and I was really into it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, a lot of kids, they want to experience that feeling of sitting down and playing music.
Yeah.
So I devised a curriculum that kind of bottom lines the fundamentals.
Yeah.
So they can get to the drum setting, experience that feeling of playing music sooner rather than later, because that's really what's going to hook them.
Yeah.
Make them want to sit down and practice. So yeah, sitting down first, developing that bass control with the hands, and gradually working to the drum set. But not too gradual.
Gotcha.
That's where you lose them.
Well, let's play another one, man.
Cool.
Because I want to. How about we do, you, man. Every time I throw just like a little zinger, and sure enough, you got the fucking snare comes right behind it, like giving it right back. I love that. So one of my favorite memories of you playing, it's like one of the first times, because when I was a kid, not a kid, but like when we were younger, the Bridge used to play all the time, and I used to see like the 8x10 and stuff like that. But I used to just get drunk and high all the time. I wasn't really paying attention.
Right.
But when, I don't know, maybe it was 10 years ago or something like that, when Chris Jacobs came through and opened for, what's his name? Was it Eric Lindell or something like that at
Club 66?
No, it was at Power Plant. When you had Jake Leckie on bass.
Oh yeah, that was
It was like right when that first started. Yeah, it was at Power Plant in Baltimore. I forget who you opened up for, but anyway, I came to see the headliner, who I can't remember, and I saw you guys, and Chris is great. I'm a huge fan of Chris, and Jake's a monster bass player, like so tasteful. But like one thing I remember, I was like, this dude's got a groove that just won't fucking quit, man. Like I remember that, and I don't remember who I was going to see, like, and just. We've never played before, and like just every little time I give like a little zinger, it's like, bam, and there it comes back. It's a pleasure, man.
Oh, thank you.
Dude, you're good, dude.
The pleasure's
it's
all
awesome.
mine, and I've been very fortunate to play with such great musicians. Chris is an unbelievable musician.
Yeah. Chris is great.
Yeah, and having a guitar player who is not only melodically and harmonically sound with their instrument, but also very much rhythmically aware. That makes things so much more fun for me, because we can interact on that level. I can't really provide any support melodically or harmonically, but I can support what's going on rhythmically. And when you have a guitar player who's very rhythmic, it can make things a lot of fun, just like we were just having.
Yeah.
What was going on
There's a ball, man.
Super rad. And that a lot of my favorite music has that. Like when you have a guitar player and a drummer that are just so in sync, really understand what's going on rhythmically, and there's a certain depth rhythmically there that's magical.
Yeah, man. The other thing, I want to move on and talk about some other stuff, but like the other thing that I really like is that you seem to have a really wide dynamic range in this, like you like, I like that, I put it akin to like when people play really, really fast on their guitar, they tend to lose their rhythm, or if they play like really, really soft, they tend to lose it. Like it's because it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
I feel like if I played even one soft note, like you drop down, but the groove doesn't change at all. I've always thought that, like, dynamically, like, you were one of my favorite players around town.
Wow, I appreciate that, man. I mean, I owe that to having a drum teacher who was very much a proponent of being a chameleon and being able to fit a lot of different musical situations, and that a big part of that is being able to adapt dynamically and not feeling like you have to play loud and fast all the time. Which the music that I was into early on that inspired me was Metallica and Slayer
all day.
That stuff, and that's what I wanted to play like. And I didn't want to play this soft, slow stuff, but he just drilled it into my head. He's like, no, listen to Miles, listen to Coltrane, listen to.
So he was all about exposure and pushing you to do things that you weren't really comfortable with.
Very much so. And thank God he was, really adamant about that, because
I did not have a teacher like that. I kind of wish I did.
Everybody's different, and it's not to say that would have worked for everybody. Maybe.
Right, that's true.
I kind of took to it, and even though I was kind of hesitant to take to it at first, I knew that he was a professional drummer. He was somebody that was very well respected and is well respected. So obviously, it'd be in my best interest to listen to him, what he has to say as an educator. So I was exposed to a lot of music that wasn't just really fast and really loud all the time. And then I had to adapt to those musical situations that I found myself in, especially when I got to college and ended up playing jazz combo and big band, and there's different ensembles where
much different than Slayer.
Much different, the Lars Ulrich thing is not going to
not the ba ba crash with the snare.
Right. Twirling the sticks. You know, it's not going to go over all that well. So
that's funny. So what are you doing around town now? So like, where can people come see you play? I know you're playing tomorrow, and you're playing with Mark Hawkins, who was just on here. And who's playing bass? Is that Jeff?
Jeff Reed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have that project. What else are you doing?
So I have my jazz trio, which we're not playing nearly as much as I would like because it's really up to me to book those gigs. I need to get on the ball with that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a fun group. It's Alex Weber on bass and Savino Palumbo on piano, and those guys are just excellent musicians. And it's really up to me to make that happen, both like from a gig standpoint, but also providing the material. Alex writes some nice stuff which she's brought to the table, but I formed that group to have an outlet for my composition. So composing is something that I've been getting into more and more.
That's something I don't do at all. You do that now?
I do. I'm still very much an amateur, if you will, in that realm. But we did a Christmas gig back in December of arrangements that I wrote of Christmas tunes. I just reharmonized them and switched some of the time signatures and all of that. And that really inspired me to just take that more seriously, composing, like sitting down at the piano every day and doing something.
So you start on the piano?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep. So that's something that I'm trying to do more. That doesn't really pay the bills, so you gotta have other things that actually.
Do you have anything on social media or something that we can tag so people can check it out, or is that still very much in the works?
Still very much in the works. I have some plans as far as them becoming a reality. That's going to take a little bit of time, but on my Facebook business page, there's some clips of that trio playing.
Yeah.
But that's still something that is very much in its infancy and something that I need to do more with, especially in terms of social media.
Gotcha.
So I do the wedding band thing. Speaking of having to pay the bills, that's keeps me busy on the weekends. And keeps me afloat financially. I play with a great guitar player who you had on here recently, Ruben Montoya.
Ruben's great, man. Yeah. He's such a cool guy.
Yeah. He's a great dude. Super funky.
Yeah, I was talking to Matt Bowers, who's the drummer in my band. You know Matt.
Yeah, of course.
And he subs with when you're out for Ruben. Sometimes. And he was just like, man, if Gambone ever wants to give that gig up, I'll jump right in there. Because he loves playing with Ruben.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause he's loose, he's fun, he's a good player, good tunes. I really enjoyed hanging out with him.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to again, I've been very fortunate, very lucky to have the opportunity to play with so many great musicians around town.
There's some good players here. Like this, that's one of the main reasons I like doing this channel, is to let people know that there's some people that are good here. Like Baltimore is Annapolis, the metro area. I mean, there's some real monsters here.
There really are, and I don't get out to see them enough.
At all. I literally say this to every person that comes through here. Like, one of the things that makes me so happy about doing these is I actually get to meet other musicians for once. Because if you're good, you're gigging. Yeah. So you never get to see anybody.
I know.
It's such a weird thing that we do with our lives, because you grow up, you fall in love with it, you go to shows, and then once you start gigging, you don't go to shows that aren't your own.
I know.
So you don't see anybody. It's like this weird existence we all have, where we only know each other now on social media. Yeah. And so now I finally get to meet someone. It's so cool.
Yeah. It's something that it's just interesting how priorities change over time. For me, priority number one is being at home with the family, making sure the home front is taken care of, which full well. So the nights that I am out playing, doing my thing, I'm fortunate that I have a wonderful wife who gets up with the kids those mornings where I don't get home until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Me too. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Words cannot express how much we appreciate it. So the nights where I don't have gigs and I can go to sleep at a reasonable hour and actually get up with the kids.
You do?
Sleep, man. Yeah. So I'm not going out to see gigs on nights that I have off because I need to.
Listen,
My priorities are running.
I hear you. Well, let's play one more, and then I want to talk about your online course and all that type of thing.
Great.
How about a train beat? Give me a train beat.
Okay. Train beat, huh? Got any certain tempo in mind?
Faster is better.
Faster is better. Okay.
Anything you want, dude.
You asked for it.
Go for it. So ridiculous.
You're playing hard stuff, man. I just gotta play the beat.
Well, the problem with doing that stuff is, which I obviously realized as soon as I jumped into it, is that without the bass, anytime I jump off anything low, it just doesn't work really.
Sounds just fine to me, man.
So, all right. So let's talk about your course, man. So, like me, you've kind of jumped into this whole online learning thing.
Thanks to you.
Yeah, well, excuse me for a second, yeah. So I'm trying to encourage as many people to do it as possible because, we've spoken about this at length, and that's just like, this is a new thing, man. And like, as teachers, let me turn this off for a second. It's buzzing, it's always something. But as teachers, we can only teach so many people. You know what I mean? You're limited by how many hours are in the day, and and I think most of us that play have to teach as well to help pay the bills and stuff like that, And teaching makes you a better player. I know I experienced that, for sure. So that's why I encourage everybody to do it because, like, the more people that do it, then the more people that will learn online.
Yep.
And so whatever instrument, so I strongly encourage and support others who, kind of want to venture down this road. So one thing I wanted to do is kind of give you an opportunity, one, to talk about your course, and then more specifically, and you can feel free to play or show examples if you want, what did you have to do differently to teach online that you would do with a person in person? They kind of adapt your curriculum to learning on a screen instead of in a room with somebody.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the biggest challenges I think we all have, and I think a lot of people watching that are players and also teachers that are kind of like considering this, maybe haven't thought of.
Yeah, it's not until you have to really think about it you realize just how much you have to think about it, how much you have to consider.
Yeah, right?
In terms of creating a product that's really going to come across well in the online setting.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the opportunity to sit down with the students and,
So it's not
explain
one-on-one.
things.
Teaching at scale changes it.
Totally.
Because you're not, because good teachers will see a student and they'll adapt to that student.
Uh-huh.
But if you're doing it at scale, you got to try to make something that is palatable for, at volume.
And that's exactly it. I had to consider, okay, there's a lot of different learning styles out there. There's people who are more auditory, people who are more visual. So I wanted to create a course that, number one, covered all those aspects, covered the auditory aspect where you have, I have MP3 files where I demonstrate each example, the different exercises for each lesson so people can hear what it's supposed to sound like. And some people, that's enough. They hear it and go, oh, okay, that's what it's supposed to sound like. Got it. Other people need to see it, whether it be seeing, watching me demonstrate it or looking at the music notation, which, I know a lot of people are kind of, oh, music notation, I don't know, I just want to play it. I just want to hear something play it. And some people that works. Some people, they don't need music notation. Plenty of great musicians who don't really read music. But to communicate what I'm trying to demonstrate, you have to have certain basic terminology.
Sure.
That, the student can understand. So that terminology is, of course, talking about rhythms, note values, quarter notes, eighth notes. And from there, of course, I have to show it, what those notes look like. And from there, I have the exercises written out so they can see the notes on paper. And some people seeing the notes written out and seeing how the different components line up helps them to grasp.
Yeah, if they're visual learners, seeing those subdivisions makes sense to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
So hitting all those things, the video, the music notation, the MP3 files, me demonstrating and stuff. I wanted to, make it as easy as possible for anybody, no matter what their learning style is, to be able to, to grasp.
What about genres? Like, is it based in a certain genre, or is it more, what you have out there? What should people expect?
Well, as far as genres go, I'd say it's more like kind of the rock and even funk kind of genre.
Yeah.
If you were to, look at the different grooves that I demonstrate, and think about different tunes that you may hear those grooves in. Those grooves you would hear in rock songs, you would hear in funk songs.
Yeah.
But it's more so just like fundamental grooves that are really the starting point for any style. It doesn't matter what it is. If you want to play jazz, you want to play blues, getting into like Latin and that stuff, that's a whole other world.
I know nothing about that world. My bass player Sean is like, he's from LA and he used to play a bunch of those gigs, and like he busts into some of that stuff. I just like, I don't hear anything in my head. I don't know what to do.
It's like anything else, man. You spend time listening to that stuff and having the opportunity to play with cats, then it starts to make sense. But there's so much to process as a musician these days with all the music out there that's easily accessible. And for drummers especially, the drum set is probably the most easily applied instrument to any style of music out there. It's applied to Latin music. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Brazilian, talking about Afro-Cuban. It's applied to even in classical music. You have drum sets in the back of orchestras now. It's all over the place. So it can be pretty overwhelming in terms of like just the vast amount of material that's out there and what you can learn. But for me, what I've found, it all comes back to are certain fundamental grooves and certain fundamental coordination that needs to be
Like, what are some fundamental grooves? Like, can you play an example or two?
Okay, so the first example in the course, once you get to the actual groove section, is 4 on the floor, which is quarter notes of the bass drum, quarter notes of the hi-hat, 2 and 4 on the snare. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So getting that flowing first, that's the foundation for just about any other rock beat or funk groove you can think of. Then from there, you can get a little bit more complicated with the bass drum, adding in different 8th note patterns. I think example 3 from the lessons. Alright, so then that's, you have to work out the coordination between the hi-hat and the bass drum.
Right.
Getting the hi-hat, the right hand, or left hand if you're left-handed, to be on autopilot while you're playing within the beat with the bass drum. So you think about that groove right there, I mean, that, you got to be able to do that before you can do just about anything else you can think of in music, in drumming. So playing that with the straight 8 feel or swung feel, then you get into more like bluesy stuff, so you can play that same groove as a shuffle. So whether you're talking rock or blues, jazz, it all comes back to the same rhythms, and from there it's just a matter of how you phrase them.
Yeah, what you kind of build upon that, but that is your general foundation.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I'm going to tag a link to the course in this video, and I'm going to put it up on YouTube as well for anybody that wants to go check it out. I highly recommend it, and like I really can't say this enough. Like, when I play drums, I have better guitar gigs, like that day. Like, I really think there's something to be said for any type of instrumentalist learning to play drums. Yeah. And you've always been one of my favorite drummers around town, and you're a great educator. So, like, I really appreciate you coming on. And anybody that's looking for an online course, Gambone's the man. So hit the link. I'll put it in there when we're off. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Maybe, like, in regards to the course, another thing that I wanted to accomplish with the course is I wanted to get the student from the drum pad to the drum set as quickly as possible. That was one of the main goals with this course, is to make it so people don't get bored sitting at the drum pad after 7 lessons. You're at the drum set, I think by lesson maybe 5 or something.
Right.
So I wanted to get the student to be able to sit down and experience that feeling of playing the drum set sooner rather than later, so that their interest stays peaked.
That's the idea, man.
Yeah. So that's just another tidbit about that online course that I really made a conscious effort to accomplish with it.
Cool.
And I want to say thank you to this guy right here. He doesn't get enough credit. Michael Palmisano was the man, and I owe a lot to this dude for giving me the kick in the butt that I need to take my playing and my teaching to another level.
I appreciate that. It's hard, dude. It's hard. Like, I don't want people that are watching this to think that what we do is easy. Yeah. I know for me personally, it took me, I don't know how many students, but definitely a few years before I felt like I was a good in-person teacher.
Yeah.
And it took me equally as long to find my footing online. And I think that, if you kind of keep that same thing with gigging, you know what I mean? Like, I gigged out, but I didn't feel like comfortable for at least 3 or 4 years of figuring out like what to do. Yeah. And like knowing that like this is my personality in this spot. It took that time.
Yeah.
So,
and that's a good word to use, personality. Like, you have a personality.
Yeah.
When you're talking to people, but also when you play your instrument, you have a personality, and being comfortable with your personality and what you want to say in the moment, it takes time. And even in a teaching situation, when you're trying to explain to a student something, explaining it in a way where you feel comfortable that this is what I need to say for them to really grasp this.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, you have another avenue you can take to get through them, and just, like comes with experience.
That's it. You feel like fielding a question? We have
Absolutely.
a question up there.
Yeah,
So, and then we'll probably maybe play another one and call it a day because we're pushing it on time. I know you gotta pick your daughter up, but so Ken asks, as a drummer, what bugs you most about guitar players?
I gotta be careful with this one.
What do we do that's just like, Jesus Christ, put it down, go do a lap and get a beer?
Oh, wow. When guitar players, and this with any instrumentalist, not just guitar players, but when guitar players try to force something on the situation that doesn't need to be there, you play the music, whatever it is. It's, playing music is an art.
Yeah.
And you obviously want to be able to create and be creative. But sometimes...
We fit that new lick we've been working in all week.
Oh, yeah.
When it doesn't need to be there.
And you know what? I'm sure I've been guilty of that. I'm sure there's plenty of musicians that have played with me and be like, yeah, when Mike plays that lick, and he's not supposed to. Well, we're all guilty of that. And that's a part of growing, too.
Yeah, that's
trying
true.
out new stuff. But, yeah, just playing for the situation and not trying to force anything on it doesn't really belong there.
That's good advice. Well, just because I want to, let's just do another one and then we'll call it a day.
Great.
How about, let me turn this back on. I got some noise over here. Always something with my stuff. Alright, how about, want to do something in like 6? Like 6/8, I mean. Like. not exactly what you should do without a bass player.
I had fun.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. Mike Gambone, everybody.
Thank you all for tuning in. It's the real.